We're talking about Saturn in the 5th house natally. What does it mean? How to deal with it? Saturn can be a bit of an asshole. It's tough love, and can think about Saturn a little bit as like some elder or family member or grandparent that was like really hard and strict with us as a kid. And it was kind of like, yo, what the frick? Like, why aren't you giving me 75 cents to go get Dippin' Dots? I just want to go play. I want to like play some PlayStation 1. You're making me do chores. What the frick? At that age, it's hard to see strictness as being tied to some kind of overarching lesson. And then it's like years later, that person has died. I guess they don't have to be dead. I'm just like assuming years later, they were probably old in the start of this scenario. So now they probably have passed on from old age. You realize, okay, there was a reason why they did the things they did. There was a reason for that strictness, and I like really see the benefits, and I like wish I could express my gratefulness to them. Or you might just be like, the Saturn sucks, like that person was mean, I didn't really connect with them, like I don't miss them that much. It's better if you try to take the former approach. And so we're talking about Saturn in the 5th house. 5th house it's the Leo house, it's the second fire house. Aries sits on the 1st house. That's all about our spontaneous expression of identity. It's not a conscious expression. It's just doing, going. It's very instinctual, innocent, spontaneous. The 5th house, this is more about expression of our individuality. So we go from Aries into individuality in the 1st house to the 5th house, where it's like, okay, this is how I express, this is what I create. And that's a process of not only like expressing my individuality, but also memorializing my individuality. It's making artifacts for my individuality. It's also figuring out and getting feedback and validation of that individuality. It's our creativity. It's our unique expression. It's our unchecked flamboyance that shines a light on our identity, right? And can continue to reinforce it or direct it outwardly. Children, procreation, anything that we're kind of creating. This house is also associated with romance, more like spontaneous or passionate romance. It's less in the sense of self-sacrificial or a cooperational partnership. It's more love and relationships that are like a mirror, again, for us to learn about ourselves. It's more hedonistic, more sensual, more dopaminic kind of love rather than more of a sort of tamer or long-term love. And so in some ways, it's easy to talk about activity of the 5th house as being selfish or self-centered, but this is an important sphere in the whole spectrum of experience. This expression of self under the idea that there's more doors in our spiritual path that open when we really maybe are aligned with our unique identity and we're channeling our unique expression. And you have to engage a self-focused process in order to figure that out. So that's where we are with the 5th house. And when we have Saturn here, we have that like annoying dude that thinks he's smarter than everyone else, and he's definitely kind of smart, but like he's definitely missing out on something. And he's just like, all that stuff, all that expression, creation, that's all stupid. That's a waste of time. Like, it's dumb. Why would you even do that? At the most basic level, Saturn here means there's that blockage in personal, individual expression. There's a blockage in creativity. There's sometimes a blockage on having spontaneous fun for the sake of fun. There's a real sort of seriousness about this placement. It's the person at the party that's like, all right, this is going on late, like the music is way too loud, we need to turn down the music, like I think we're breaking the town ordinance. Think about Leo being ruled by the sun. Leo is the sign on the 5th house. And talking about solar energy here in the 5th house. And when Saturn is here to block it and limit it and circumscribe rules and restrictions around it, there's a darkness, there's a blockage of one's own light. There's an inherited or embodied idea that that stuff isn't important, or that I don't have it, I don't have anything to offer. People with this placement natally might have come from early experiences where maybe they had just very strict parents or very collectivist or big family where you were just a number and it wasn't about you. Maybe you had to really fight and jockey to get attention, and maybe you just didn't you get attention. You kind of just blend it in. This can also be people that maybe had larger than life parents. Maybe they were very popular or very flamboyant or bohemian, and like they were so individualistic and they got a lot of attention for it, or they were very successful. So that energy really dominated and their light really dominated, and you didn't have the opportunity to step into your own. Saturn here really blocks that creative process, that process of creating things and letting them be out in the world and things that express our value and why we're here. There's an inherent blockage in self-worth, or a lack of self-worth. And a lack of self-worth also means or is associated with a lack of self-love. Again, maybe the child didn't receive enough love as a child, or maybe they were loved, but only to the extent that they operated within certain confines. Maybe they had to create and express themselves in a certain way, and that was loved and rewarded, but it wasn't the way that was like truly them. These can also be children that really were expected to be extensions of their parents, or that their parents used to live vicariously, and so they directed them in specific ways. Again, that took them away from their true essence. People here will it's either like a lack of confidence, like, I don't see the point of painting or doodling or coloring because I'm not good at it and it's just going to be stupid. Or I really, really want to do that, but I'm just so worried about how it's going to be received. I'm so worried about being evaluated that I would just rather not do it. Anytime we're talking about Saturn, I think about this idea of excess importance. This is a concept introduced in a book called Reality Transurfing, and excess importance is this idea that we place just too much importance on something. We let it sink hooks into us. It's something that maybe we lacked or is really important or really valuable for us, but the extent to which we are just funneling all of our energy and focus on it, you are sort of self-sabotaging yourself as it pertains to whatever that thing is. And that's really the nature of Saturn, either with a lot of desire, just, wanting it, or, outright dismissing it or saying it's awful, or we don't need that. Either way, just by shining a light on it, it's excess importance. And so there can be really strong opinions. It's like, I'm not going to do this stuff. I'm not going to put myself out there because I really want to. I want it more than anything, but if I get shut down or I get rejected, I can't handle it. Or it's like, that's, it's a complete rejection of the importance of that. It's like, no, you need to, get a job. You need to do, your duty, take care of the X's and O's, take care of the things that really matter, act like an adult, and that stuff is for children. Someone with a Saturn in this position is someone that also can be like a big negative Nancy. Like someone might tell them, oh man, my dream is to be a YouTuber or a content creator. And they're like, well, what would you even make videos about? Like, how would you even do that? And the other person's like, I don't know, but I'm just gonna do it. And the fifth house Saturn person is like, good luck, like it's probably not gonna work. What makes you think you could do that? I'm getting really wordy and talking in circles, but I think the basic thing to be aware of is that there is a self-fulfilling prophecy, a self-stifling process. Self-worth, right? Your creation, it has inherent value. It has an inherent right to exist. It's not something that has to be earned. It doesn't mean it's for everyone, but it's not for them. It's for you. And anything that comes as a byproduct is a byproduct. But you have to decide what you want to do and what really fuels your spirit, what inspires you. And it doesn't matter if it sucks. You have to realize that there are benefits from really engaging this domain of your life, even if it's, maybe you just want to do watercolors and you think, what's the point? I should focus on things that matter. I'm never going to be Da Vinci. Maybe, doing watercolors for 1 or 2 hours a week helps you connect with the right part of your brain, or it helps you relax. And you realize that everything in life is a beautiful balance, a beautiful mosaic. And paying attention to one area, positively fueling it, will branch out into other parts. You can't build a really sound foundation by neglecting fifth house stuff, having fun, putting yourself out there, expressing yourself, trying to do something just for the fun of it. It's not helpful. It's not good to look down on other people for what you see as having really naive kind of creative goals. Who knows, right? That's them. And you need to learn how not to be so harsh of a self-critic. Things don't need to be externally validated to have value. And adopting a more serious workaholic approach to life that denies all these things doesn't make you better or more evolved or more on the right path. It doesn't mean that your life is more important. This can be very much like the workaholic type position in some ways, because you deny yourself these kind of basic childlike things. You deny yourself the joy of just doing art class projects or whatever it is, because you're trying to get value or respect or love in other ways, in the ways that maybe you were taught. Again, you could also be continuing to live your life in a way that's not aligned with who you really are, right? I was talking about it earlier. It's this kind of living out inherited ideas or in the ways that we were directed by our parents. It's time to drop the things that are really not serving you, are like really incongruent with what's really on the inside. Doesn't mean if you have some corporate job, it means quit it and go outside and start trying to sell your watercolors, but maybe it means not taking the 70-hour-a-week job. Maybe you work a few less hours for a little bit less pay, and you give yourself time to do other stuff that can scratch that itch, or maybe it's even just making time in your downtime to do some of those things, letting yourself do stupid things. The gift of this placement is, when this is worked through, is people that actually can become extremely aware of what they really desire, right? It's something that's come from realizing that they were walking the wrong path, or they inherited values or an identity that wasn't really theirs. And so when they do really deliberately change course and they commit to that, it's so genuine and it's so authentic, and it can be really super fulfilling. This can also be people that actually eventually bring their sort of seriousness, that intense Saturnian kind of discipline and criticism, they tone it down a little bit, and they can combine it with that creative impulse, and they can actually do some really incredible things, and they can combine the left brain, combine the right brain, and be very measured and masterful about what they do with it, and the things that they create, and the way that they express themselves can actually be, go from something that they lack to being just a main staple and a constant and a source of stability in this kind of new identity, new version of themselves. One thing I realized I didn't really talk about in this video was how this manifests in the context of the fifth house association with bearing children, having kids. But it's a similar kind of thing, right? It's ideas about, this is very much not for me, or I want this so bad. And then you lose a little bit of the lightness and the playfulness with it. It's that excess important. People that have this placement, they're not going to be denied the opportunity to have kids their whole life. Maybe they can have them, but it's going to be in a different way. Conversely, it's not like they have to have kids. They're not forced to do something just because other people want them to. When Saturn is worked through in this position, there's a much more authentic and genuine approach toward whatever fifth house activity we're talking about. And again, huge gifts at the end of the rainbow. If you're watching this video and you're thinking about these things in the context of your life, like, you're going to get there, you're on the right path. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.